Okay, so okay.
No, like it makes me.
We're ending with Lillian.
I have 0 messages, really?
Do you want me to send you one?
Guys,
I can send you one.
goodness me.
So you have a notification.
Is this just fantasy?
We need to finish them, and
No, I'm saving
She
it.
didn't even eat it yet.
oh my gosh.
I think a little.
How can she be done?
Nothing on a Sunday. Nothing.
Do you understand?
Oh, you can carry on. My
Continue.
address is down here.
Okay. All right. Okay.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
So,
Lillian,
go on.
Yeah, you're finishing up.
So, would I marry an African man?
Hello everyone, thank you for coming back to watch part 3. I think this will be the second last. There'll be one more and then we'll be done with this video. But overall, I've been having a great time, been receiving great feedback, and I am so grateful for these ladies for allowing me to feature them in this video and for giving me the great input. So let's go ahead with this video. Again, subscribe so that you don't miss out on any upcoming new videos.
And what was the other part of it?
Why?
Did you settle with
Did
an
you settle
African?
with
Oh
an
yeah, why?
And why?
Oh.
So, as my friends know, I am engaged to an African man.
Hey.
And he's not just African, he is Kenyan and he is Kikuyu. What does that mean? To
When
me,
he
it
coming
means
up?
that I know, like, I've been exposed to so many different kinds of people, and it would have been easy to just say, you know what, I'm just gonna pick another guy based on what I like in a man. But for me, an African man made sense because my dad told me 3 things when I was a young girl. He said the 3 components that make a marriage work are family, culture, and religion. And also your friends. If those components don't come together, it's like a stool. If one leg is missing, it's just not gonna work as well. So for me, just based on that, I knew that my man had to be Kenyan, he had to be Christian, my family had to love him, and my friends had to agree with him. So if any woman or man is looking for a criteria for how you should consider if somebody should be your potential spouse, you ought to consider, are these components going to work in the long run? Because those are things that make people or break people. And I'm so happy because when I'm angry, by default, I speak Kikuyu, even to my friends. And my man understands what I'm saying, and that matters to me because I don't have to re-explain myself in a different language. So that's why I would say I would definitely marry my African man.
Wow.
You're marrying your
Now
African
that is
man.
why she has to
That is
sum
very
up the
true.
point. If she had said that and then I gave my point, it would make sense.
That is very true. And I've experienced it.
I like
I was
how
talking
you-
Swahili to this person. I didn't even know what I was saying. Yeah, that has happened. I can totally relate
He
to
just
that.
looked at you.
You probably done been crazy. You know,
Too much.
all kinds of
The
things.
other way, a little bit.
Right there, thank you. Girl, you're coming through. You're coming. You
Don't make noises back there. It will be hard
No,
to
but
edit.
I'm sorry, I had to say it.
Okay.
You know how to crop that.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Have you ever been ashamed of being African?
Why?
And why? Think about it. Wow.
I will say yes, because when Ugandan members of parliament were no, I'm serious.
I know you're
They were arguing about a certain issue. I won't go into that, but it was a hot mess, and it was like, seriously, you're grown men, you're educated men, you're on national television throwing chairs. It was embarrassing. So that I will say yes, but ashamed, no, I won't say ashamed. I'll just say I've felt
embarrassed.
people have wanted to shame me, but
Okay.
you know, I just ignore them. Really, I'm like, okay, it's not worth it. I know who I am. I love who I am, and whatever you say can't change that.
Yes. Okay, girl. Nobody else.
would agree.
Embarrassed. I'd use the word
Embarrassed is it.
embarrassed.
Because of the things people do that put us on the news.
Yeah,
Yeah, ashamed
because of the misconceptions people have about us.
Yeah.
So when we talk to them, that's what they think of us, and it's kind of sad in a way. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Not ashamed because I'm African,
Definitely
ashamed
not.
because I'm thinking about how they're viewing me. And before you even
Ah.
approach people, sometimes they're like, well, they're going to think I'm African and they're probably going to think this and that.
But when they hear me speak, this opportunity is not for me because they automatically disqualify me.
Or when they see your name.
That's true.
I've grown immune to it now. I'm like, let's say if somebody asks me, where are you from? I know immediately after I say Tanzania, they're going to be like, where is Tanzania? Oh, I only know Kenya, or I only know this country. They don't know Tanzania.
Oh my gosh.
So now I've grown immune to it. It's not
And
a
to piggyback,
shaming thing to me.
like, where you from? I say Uganda. Oh, Idi Amin. I'm like, okay.
Oh my God.
Like,
Okay, yeah.
I wasn't even alive during that time. Like, I understand it was, that's what you heard, that's what you know, but really, we've moved forward, in our own way, and, it's just,
Get over
it's
it.
embarrassing.
I will say this. I think sometimes it helps being around like-minded people because let's say I'm embarrassed when I'm hanging out with certain groups of friends. Like, they'll call you out. Like, I was working at a restaurant and people would ask me, oh, how comes Kenyans who come here have a big forehead? And I'm like, well, newsflash for y'all. Every Kenyan I know has a forehead, right? But you're embarrassed because you feel like you're standing out in the midst of different people. But when you're with people who know, like your friends who know the culture and know your background, it's easier to cope with the things that people shame us for because they understand. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so
All
that's
comes down to culture, y'all. That's right.
that's why I've never been ashamed. I feel like I've never been ashamed because I've surrounded myself with Africans. Like what are you gonna tell me? My friends. Yeah, I've been in environments whereby cultures are celebrated and not shamed. So that's why I have never been ashamed of being African. But I've had like horror stories of people people would come out here and be like, oh, I don't think I'm African. Umezaliwa Africa. Why am I talking Swahili? You've grown up and been brought up in Africa, but you're out here saying you're not African. But then
what if they're really not African? What if
maybe it's out of shame though.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I've not I've surrounded I have chosen to surround myself with people that are from my culture because I know some people might say things they might not mean to offend me, but I'll be like,
really?
And I face
no offense.
I face that a lot because of where I am. I'm in Towson, and you barely meet African people, and the people that I go to class with and everything, they're not from Africa. So I face that a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm the only African there, so they're looking at me like, Sita, do you know this? And I'm like, yeah, I am a human being, not, some things
not
like,
the continent.
Yeah, like they think you don't know anything because you're from Africa, that kind of thing.
True. Yeah. So on that note, what would you say to, let's say, generations like Monica is not ashamed of being African, are you? Okay, but there are people
the upcoming generation.
Yeah, the upcoming generations. You are brought up here. Born here, raised here, you don't identify with your African culture. Then somebody comes up to you one day and is like, where are you from? It's like, oh, I'm from America. But they say, where are you really from? Then you say, oh, I'm from this country in Africa. And then they start throwing some sort of shade towards you. How do you advise that teenager, that girl, that baby to deal with such a situation?
That's a tough question, only because I think sometimes when kids are born in this country and raised in this country, they don't realize that just based on our features already distinguish us as Africans. There's nothing we can do about that. You can raise your kid here all you want. They can speak the language, be like the people here, but people will look at them and still discriminate. And even based on their name, they'll still, find fault in who they are. So what I would advise them is know who you are. Once you know your identity, you get more comfortable with being uncomfortable. You get what I mean? Because at that point, it's like, well, people will notice my name is Wanjiku. And people will notice, yes, I look Kenyan. But I have to know that I am more than what they perceive Kenyans to be. So it's really teaching them like that. That thing of teaching them, self-love. Like, for example, I'll say I love how my friends have cut their hair, because it kind of speaks volume. It's like, this is how it grows. This is who I am. I don't really care what people think. So when a little girl is growing up and people are trying to shame her about her hair, you can tell her, hey, look, this is how our hair is. You know, that's just a good hot topic that people talk about. That's a big deal. So that's the same thing I'd say. Like, a lot of kids will go to college and then people will start really calling out, you know, who they really are, even though they've been brought up here. But instilling a sense of identity and worth will help them overcome, because some things you just have to go through with them in life.
Yeah. Monica, how would you deal if somebody came up to you and mocked you for being African? How would that make you feel, and what would you tell them?
Monica's off camera.
On a serious note,
are we putting you on a spot?
She's not on that.
Or it wouldn't like hurt you?
How would you
It wouldn't
feel?
bother you?
Not really.
It wouldn't bother you? Why?
Because, like, there's so many different cultures that you can't just, like, say that about, I don't know.
I will say this, to piggyback on what she said, it's not really advice, but, like, looking at her parents speak Swahili to her. She's surrounded by you guys who talk about Tanzania, who talk about Kenya, who talk about your culture often. So I will say this, like, starting at a young age, at least surround your kids with, you know, people of your culture. And just, you know, so they get to know who these people are, their background stories, you know, they get to know their culture. You know, they have a separate culture. They're not really, they weren't born, they don't have the same experiences as you, but they'll be open-minded. And when someone tells them, you know, this and this about your culture, be like, oh, well, you know, when I look at my auntie, like when I look at Orupa, this doesn't really matter to her because she knows who she is. So I should know who I am, you know, with my culture as American, but also as African in the same way. So just surround your kids. You know, if you see a child who doesn't really have that influence, just befriend them and just, you know, get to know them and talk to them, show them your perspective and your point of view of your culture.
And just to say what she was saying, I think it's a good point that culture, like the word culture, because many times people say if you don't have a culture, you're a slave, right? So we all know how the term is in Swahili. So to me, I think just having that identity is what helps you cope, because you're not really trying to figure out whether you're American or you're European or whatever. You already know what you are, so you're just building onto that. So even if you pick up other people like we do, we go to our workplaces and school, we interact with all kinds of people, but we know where the home is in our culture. So
don't lose that.
Yeah, and train up a child. Train up a child. Whatever you instill at a young age, when they're older, it will always come back to them.
They'll know there's always somewhere where I belong, even though I don't, you know, necessarily know these people, but you belong there.
Right.
And that's what everybody wants. They want to belong somewhere.
I think it's gonna be for the parents. I feel like when people come to America, they don't want to be African anymore. I'm not saying that in a bad way. That my child is now American, they're not going to speak my language, they're not going to speak Swahili. When you celebrate your culture at home, it's going to rub off on your child. No matter, I mean, they're going to go outside. The people will be like, your child spends more time outside and things like that. But at home, they see you celebrate the culture. They like the small things, African decorations, speaking Swahili, watching an African movie, watching a Swahili, like Bongo Stars that you're watching with Monica. I mean, these things are not, it's a funny show, it's music, but
It's your people.
it's different, right, Monica?
Yeah.
Like, it's different. It's like, I feel like it's the small thing. It doesn't have to be deep topics, but sit here with me, I'm gonna watch this that you don't like.
Yeah.
Right.
Find out what your
find
child
something they
enjoys
like.
and then do it together
Yeah.
with a twist, with an African twist. So celebrate your culture.
And I think that's why people know so much of Nigerians, because, you know, Nigerians really pride themselves.
Yes.
You know, they're like, this is who we are.
Weddings, you know,
And they don't change it for anybody, so
They would show up everybody in suit, but they'll wear
their attire and just be comfortable.
Yeah.
That's right.
pineapple suit.
I think it all starts from back home. There is a lot of this notion that the Western are more
Are better.
better.
That is my question next.
When our hair was straightened, you know, I used to be very self-conscious about this hair. I straightened this hair
That
from a
the
very
Western
young
influence
age.
has had an influence.
Yeah,
on who
it
we
definitely
are.
went
Who
from
we are.
all the way back home. Because when you're at home, you know, you're surrounded by your culture, but you don't truly appreciate it until you get out.
Yeah.
Until you leave your home. That's when you
What she
really
say.
start appreciating. Because when you're there, you start looking to other cultures and you try to mimic other cultures, and then you don't appreciate your own culture, and you start instilling ideas in your head that this thing's better than what we have here.
Yeah,
And it's a whole cycle.
that's right.
So kids, teenagers, celebrate your culture. Me, I fear.
Take them home. Take them to visit home.
Yeah, I fear for her generation, but I feel like they're gonna have it a bit easier than maybe if somebody grew up in your generation, because or maybe not. As much as Africa is coming to the light and being celebrated, it's being celebrated more than it was before. There is still
true.
that.
What's acceptable? and what's
Yes.
not.
So Monica, I have relatives who have lived, who are born and raised in the UK. So the more I think about it, it's like, it's painful because they can say that they are totally African and they can say that they're totally American or Western. So, yeah, just, I can teach your kids.
Yeah.
Start by speaking your language.
Surround them with your people.
Don't just teach them the language of the foreigners.
Even if it's not, I guess what you're really saying is that, you know, we've been indoctrinated to think Western ways are better in every aspect.
Yeah.
And that's why we'll go even, like, let's say to an African event and we're like, man, these people are so untimely. But that's an idea been instilled in us that, you know, that Westerns keep time, Africans don't. So Africans who don't keep time, it's wrong. But it's just their way of life that's really different. So it's hard to find a balance.
Okay, you've made it to the end of part 3. Part 4, we will be talking about, what can we talk? I know we're talking about something about Black Panther and what our views are. I don't remember what else we talk about, but it should be coming up in a few days. So as I said before, stay subscribed. Thank you for watching. Remember to keep spreading the African love, whatever kind of love you have to offer, because there's no room for hate. And if you have any comments or questions or suggestions, have them commented below and we shall reply to you as soon as possible. Bye.